Hello, how's it going, everybody? Today we are jumping into Revelation chapter 4. Let me get that up here real quick. Hey, give me 1 second, 1 second. Revelation 4. We can get rid of this green screen too while we're at it. Okay. So, we started Revelation yesterday. We're in the last book of the Bible. It's kind of crazy. And it took a good while to get through 1 to 3. And I feel like the same is going to happen with 4 to 7. So, just a warning, we might not get through all of 4 to 7. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But let's jump into it. This is subheaded Throne Room of Heaven. Oh, let me make sure we're not lagging. Okay, we're good. All right, so let's jump into this. The Throne Room of Heaven.
After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me.
Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this.
Immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he who sat there was like a jasper and a sardius stone in appearance.
Okay, a jasper and a sardius stone. What do those look like? Jasper. Okay, so like a rustish type color. And we've seen this like this like rust, this orangish fiery type color compared with God before. And the sardius stone. Okay, same color. We saw comparisons like this of this type of color in Ezekiel. We saw a bit of it yesterday with the feet. Let's see if my Bible says anything about the stones. I doubt it will, but let's see. Yeah, it doesn't say anything. Let's just keep going.
Throne. And he who sat there was like a jasper and a sardius stone in appearance. And there was a rainbow around the throne, in appearance like an emerald. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the throne...
A rainbow around the throne in appearance like an emerald. So, does he mean the colors of it were like a rainbow? Or was it like a rainbow, like, the effect of a rainbow, but the color was like that of an emerald? Again, this is reminding me of Ezekiel's vision. And the wheels were what color? To be green like beryl. So a wheel, I don't know. I'm just when we were looking at Ezekiel, I thought, hey, what if I was just throwing stuff out there. I don't know. A rainbow, emerald looking, aurora borealis is kind of greenish too. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there.
Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes, and they had crowns of gold on their heads.
Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white robes. So who are these elders? And they had crowns of gold on their heads.
And from the throne proceeded lightning, thundering, and voices.
Again, another connection of lightning to God. We saw that in Ezekiel also.
7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Before the throne there was a sea of glass like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and in back.
Okay, so this is again really reminding me of Ezekiel. And from the throne proceeded lightnings, thunderings, and voices. 7 lampstands, 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Yesterday we had 7 stars, which represented angels, and we had 7 lampstands, which represented the churches. And now here we have 7 lamps, which represent the 7 spirits of God. Before the throne, there was a sea of glass. And I think we touched upon this in Ezekiel. But the sea of glass, like a crystal, that would be the way they viewed the firmament, right? So the throne, God is sitting on his throne on top of the firmament. Let me pull up Hebrew cosmology or biblical. Oh, that's a good picture. So God is sitting up, and this would be, I'm assuming this could be like the a sea of glass. Something like that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
The first living creature was like a lion. The second living creature like a calf. The third living creature had a face like a man.
Okay, so are these the multiple faces of the same creature like we saw in Ezekiel? Before the throne there was a sea of glass like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures full of eyes in front. Okay, so 4 individual creatures full of eyes in front. What is up with the eyes? We saw this in Ezekiel with the multiple eyes. Right? There were eyes on the wheels. If you remember, let me pull up Ezekiel's vision. What was a good representation? Cherubim. Yeah, there were eyes on the wheels. Again, like with the multiple eyes. I mean, it didn't say that they were around him. It said that they were beside him. And they had eyes on the wheels. What is up with the eyes? Before the throne, there was a sea of glass like crystal. And in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures full of eyes in front and in back. Let me look up a picture of this. Revelation 4. living creatures, and that's what they were called in Ezekiel, right? I believe that's what they were called in Ezekiel. Yeah. Ezekiel, the vision of the four living creatures. Then I looked at the living creatures, and behold, there was a one wheel on the earth beside the living creatures. Right. For each four of them. And such were their okay. And as for their likenesses of their faces, each had the face of a man. All four had the face of a lion on the right, and the face of a bull on the left, and all four had the face of an eagle, and such were their faces. Their wings were spread out above, each had two touching one another, another being, and two covering their bodies. And each went straight forward wherever their spirit was about to go. See again, appearance like the burning coals of fire. The fire was bright, and the lightning was flashing from the fire. Let me see if I can find. Okay, here again. And their legs were straight, and their feet were like calves' hoof, and they sparkled like the gleam of burnished bronze. So this is very similar to what we talked about yesterday with the feet. Then I looked, and behold, a storm wind was coming from the north, a great cloud with fire flashing forth continually, and a bright light all around it. And in its midst, something like the gleam of glowing metal in the midst of the fire. See, same kind of colors, right? We looked at those stones, very similar colors. But let me see the eyes. Okay, so there was eyes all around the rims of the wheel. The wheels. And so it seems like the same creatures from the living creatures in Ezekiel, but these had multiple faces. But these are four different creatures with the single faces of those individual animals and whatnot. How to say? I don't know what to make of all this. This is a lot. This is. What do you guys think?
Was like a lion. The second living creature, like a calf. The third living creature had a face like a man. And the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle. The four living creatures, each having 6 wings, were full of eyes around and within. And they do not rest day or night.
Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come.
Yeah, I know that song.
Whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to him who sits on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall down before him who sits on the throne and worship him who lives forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne.
You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created.
So who are these 24 elders? Let's pull up a commentary. I don't know how much this commentary is going to reveal to us. A throne, build a throne in heaven. Okay, we looked at that. The jasper and sardius stone. Let's see. Instead of describing a specific form or figure, John described emanations of glistening light in two colors. White, jasper may mean diamond, and red, sardius. Well, we looked up jasper and sardius, and they both look a very similar color. And there was a rainbow around the throne. The throne was surrounded by a green-hued rainbow. The rainbow is a reminder of God's commitment to his covenant with man. Well, I don't know if this seems like a very different rainbow. "24 thrones." Before the elders caught John's eye, he noticed the 24 thrones they sat on. These 24 elders sat on lesser thrones around the throne. Later, John will mention their song of worship. Who are these 24 elders? Commentators debate whether they are glorified human beings or angelic beings, because we did talk about how there will be a hierarchy in heaven. And people will be set over other groups of people. So maybe there will be 24 elders of human beings. Maybe these 24 elders are angelic beings. I don't know. Taking all things into consideration, the elders certainly seem to represent God's people. Elders represent the people of God, especially in the Old Testament. The 24 courses of the priesthood represented all the priests, and the 12 tribes and the 12 apostles represent all the faithful. In Revelation 5:9-10, the 24 elders sang a song of praise to Jesus, and they cried out, "For you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood." So that's an argument, I would imagine, for these 24 elders being human and not angels. Out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation. In that passage, the 24 elders clearly spoke as representatives of God's people, of the great company of the redeemed. The white robes and crowns of the elders seem to indicate they were indeed human beings in glory, of course. Angels are sometimes presented in white robes or garments, but saints also have white robes as a picture of their imputed righteousness. However, we never see angels crowned, but believers will be. Therefore, redeemed, glorified man sits enthroned with Jesus, on lesser thrones to be sure, but throned nonetheless. We are joint heirs with Christ, and we will reign with him. Okay, here we go to some interesting stuff. The lightning, thunder, voices, and the fire reminiscent of God's fearful presence at Mount Sinai. They communicate with awe associated with the throne of God. The 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne. The Holy Spirit is represented by 7 burning lamps. The 7 spirits of God is referred to in Revelation 1:4 that we just read yesterday. In other passages, he is represented as a dove or a flame of fire. The lamps of fire are important because the Holy Spirit is not ordinarily visible. It becomes visible. To become visible, he represents himself in a physical form like a dove or a tongue of fire. Crystal says, "Yep, fearful presence is right." How you doing, Crystal? So the sea of glass. Is this sea really made of glass, or did it just look like it? Commentators are divided on this point. For example, Robertson says appearance, not material, and Alfred says material, not appearance. Whether it looks like glass or is actually made of glass, it is the finest glass, like crystal. And like we looked at biblical and Hebrew cosmology, this makes complete sense in that worldview. A sea, this body of water before the throne, is reminiscent of the laver in the tabernacle and our washing of the water of the word. I'm not sure because I agree with this interpretation, because the throne is sitting upon it. And if you remember the sea near the tabernacle, I think this was just called a sea because and there's water in it. But I mean, the throne would be sitting in here. I guess you could. I don't know. It's made of crystal clear glass. That's funny. The word is to us a crystal glass, giving a clear sight of God and ourselves. But like I said, when we look at Hebrew, I'm curious what Wikipedia has about this. Do they have a picture of the rakia or the firmament? So this would be, I'm imagining, would be the sea of glass. And here's the chambers of heaven. Whoa. Whoa. And so the throne would be up here, sitting on the sea of glass. That's how I would imagine it. What John envisioned when he was writing this. Okay. 4 living creatures full of eyes. This is where things get really reminds me of Ezekiel. From comparison with Ezekiel 1, chapter 1, 4 to 14, and chapter 10, 20 to 22, we understand these creatures to be cherubim. I don't know about that. The spectacular angelic beings surrounding the throne of God. Satan was once one of these high angelic beings, according to Ezekiel 28:14. There's a difference between the living creatures in Ezekiel and the living creatures in Revelation 4, though. Remember, we were just talking about that. The ones in Ezekiel had 4 faces. The ones in Revelation 4 had 1 face of each of the 4. Or maybe John only saw one side. I'm not sure. But very similar in description. Cherubim were also prominent in design of the tabernacle, particularly in the most holy place. And the scriptures show us that the tabernacle is a model of the throne of God in some manner. Full eyes in front and in back, full eyes around and within. Their multitude of eyes. Okay, here's what the eyes thing is interesting to me. Like, why eyes? Why so many eyes? And when we read Ezekiel, I was like, okay, is this literally what it is? Do angels really look like this? Like, do they look like this? Like the cherubim? Did they actually look like this? This is kind of it's kind of crazy, you know? I mean, it's I mean if this is what it is, that's what it is. But I mean, okay, see, like here's angel, here's a cherubim. But I was thinking, okay, maybe what if this is a hallucination, and this is generally what he saw and he wrote it down. But it is over the top. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. It's not literally what it actually is. I don't know. Maybe it is. Who knows? But then he saw it again. Okay? So he saw it twice. So then we asked the question when we were reading Ezekiel, couldn't you have a hallucination of the same thing? Like, can you have the same hallucination twice? Probably. I don't know. Down to the same detail. Like, look how detailed that is. But then now John is seeing something very similar. Let's see if we can see Ezekiel 1 versus Revelation 4. This is just the text. 4 living creatures. The creatures in Ezekiel each have 4 faces, like a man, a lion, and an ox and an eagle. In Revelation, the creatures have but one visage, each of the first like a lion, the second like a calf, the third like a man, the fourth like an eagle. Okay, so see, very similar but different. In Ezekiel, the creatures are accompanied by a wheel full of eyes, which enabled them to go wherever the Spirit wanted to go. And the wheels, they're a wheel within a wheel, and they were oscillating from what I remember. In Revelation, each creature is full of eyes, suggesting complete omniscience. So they're not the same. The commentary we're just looking at says that they're the same, but they're not the same. Unless Ezekiel didn't get the full picture and John didn't get the full picture. But just imagine things like this up there in heaven. You know, imagine seeing stuff like this. Crystal says it would be some other effect like the Mandela effect. The Mandela effect is when you remember something one way, clearly, but then in actuality, it's not that. So the idea is that there's an alternate reality out there that we have split off of, and we are having memories from a different timeline. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think it's either two different. I think it's either two different types of living creatures, or since they're also very similar, it's just two different accounts, and by the time they probably got down to writing, maybe, or I don't know. I would imagine this be extremely overwhelming seeing something like this. You're probably not going to get a perfect description the first time you see it, you know? So maybe they're a bit off, or who knows, maybe they did see two different things. I'm not sure. So their multiple eyes indicate these living creatures, not beasts as in the King James Version, are not blind instruments or robots. They know and understand and have greater insight and perception than any man. These beings are of great intelligence and understanding, live their existence to worship God. A failure to truly worship is rooted in a lack of seeing and understanding. The way these superintelligent beings worship God reminds us that our worship must be intelligent. Our service must not be rash but reasonable. Romans 12:1, such as wherefore we can render a reason. But God hates a blind sacrifice. A Samaritan service, when men worship, they know not what nor why. John 4:22. Yeah, we're not just going through the motions. The act is not enough. You need to understand why. David broke that down as well. Like a lion, like a calf, like a face like a man, like a flying eagle. John described 4 cherubim. I don't know about that. Each with a different face. Or cherubim is a class that can be broken down into different subcategories. For a comparison with Ezekiel 1:6-10, we can see that each of the cherubim had 4 faces, and at the moment John saw each one of the 4 different faces pointed in his direction. Okay, so instead of saying there are 2 different types of living creatures here we're talking about, this commentary is saying John only saw one of the faces. But I would imagine you would see two of the faces looking in that direction, right? I'm not sure. Again, the significance of these four faces has been interpreted in many ways. And I'm sure John read Ezekiel's writings, so he would be looking for the other faces on the same creatures. So he wrote that there was one. So I don't know. Crystal says they could be aliens. I don't know. The four faces have been said to represent the elements, the cardinal virtues, the faculties and powers of the human soul, the patriarchal churches, the great apostles, the orders of churchmen, the principal angels, and so forth. Some commentators say these four creatures speak of the ensigns of the head tribes as Israel camped in four groups around the tabernacle in the wilderness. Numbers mentions this organization of the tribes under these four heads, but does not assign mascots to the tribal banners. Seiss, Clark, and Poole each mention this approach and cite Jewish writers and the Talmudists and the learned Mede from the rabbins. Poole explains that these were the four creatures whose portraitures were in the four ensigns of the Israelites as they were marshaled into four companies, allotting the men of 3 tribes to each company. Judah's standard had a lion in its colors, according to Jacob's prophecy of that tribe. Genesis 49:9, Ephraim had an ox, Reuben had a man, Dan an eagle. This is very interesting. This, the learned Mede proves from the rabbins, who, though fabulous enough, yet in such a thing may be credited. The 4 different faces of the cherubim are often taken as symbols of Jesus as represented in each gospel. In classical church and architecture, these 4 characters are repeated often as a motif that signifies both heaven and the 4 gospels. I'm curious to look at Genesis 49. What was it? 49:9. Can you just look at it here? Judah is the lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. Okay, so let me just open this up then. Let's just go. Judah is the lion's whelp. The scepter shall not part from Judah. Okay. Zebulun. Issachar is a strong donkey. Ephraim had an ox, Reuben had a man. But why, what about the others? Issachar, strong donkey. Reuben, my firstborn. My might and the beginning of my strength, the excellence of dignity and excellence of power. Yeah, so I'm not seeing where what this commentary is saying. That it said Reuben had a man, Dan had an eagle. Let's see if Dan had an eagle. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels. Yeah, so I'm not sure what they're getting this information from. It's a cool idea, but we got to look into it further. Because there is no specific connection between the 4 faces of the cherubim and a particular gospel. Different traditions have connected these 4 faces of the cherubim in different ways. Some have seen Matthew as the lion gospel, showing Jesus as the lion of the tribe of Judah. Mark is seen as the ox gospel, showing Jesus as a humble servant, a worker. Luke is seen as the man gospel, showing Jesus as the perfect man, the second Adam. And John is seen as the eagle gospel, showing Jesus as the man from heaven, the sky. Still, this approach also has other interpretations, as we see here. Perhaps it is safest to say the four faces are important because they represent all of inanimate creation. In its utmost excellence, the lion is the mightiest of the wild animals. This is what we read in Ezekiel, this idea here. The ox, the strongest of the domesticated animals, the eagle, the king of all birds, and man is the highest of all creation. What about animals in the sea? In Shemot Rabbah, section 23, Rabbi Abin says, there are four which have principality in this world among intellectual creatures: man, among birds the eagle, among cattle the ox, and among wild beasts the lion. Each of these has a kingdom and a certain magnificence, and they are placed under the throne of glory. Ezekiel 1:10 to show that no creature is to exalt itself in this world, and that the kingdom of God is over all. These creatures may be considered the representatives of the whole creation. Wow. The cherubim are qualified with all necessary endowments for the discharge of their duties, being bold as lions, painful as oxen, prudent as men, delighted in high flying as eagles. As well, it is significant to see the Bible associates a face with the idea of person. Here we have singular beings with four faces. Apparently, there are beings that can be more than one person, as our God is one God in three persons. Well, we don't have a singular being with four faces here. We had that in Ezekiel. Here we have four beings with singular faces. Poole says that these four faces illustrate the different personalities God's ministers have. By them is signified the various gifts with which God blesseth his ministers, giving to some more courage and fortitude, that they are like lions, to others more mildness and meekness, that they are like oxen or calves. Others have more wisdom and prudence, which most adorn a man. Others are have more piercing insight into the mysteries of God's kingdom, rendering them like eagles. Real interesting stuff, man. Oh, okay, let me look at this. Casting the crown simply acted out their declaration. You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power. If God was worthy of the glory and honor and power, then he should get the crown. There is also an allusion to the practice in the Roman Empire. The emperor of Rome ruled over many lesser kings, and these kings were at times commanded to come before the emperor and lay their crowns down before him in homage. Ah, okay. Then he would give them back as a demonstration that their crowns, their right to rule, their victory came from him. This is an allusion to the custom of prostrations in the East, and to the homage of petty kings acknowledging the supremacy of the emperor.
And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll written inside, and on the back sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice,
Who is worthy to open the scroll and to loose its seals?
And no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or to look at it.
So, humans were expected to open the scroll? And I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a a scroll written inside and on the back, sealed with 7 seals. Then I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and loose its seals?" And no one in heaven or on the earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll or look at it.
So I wept much, because no one was found worthy to open and read the scroll or to look at it. But one of the elders...
This reminds me of at the time of judgment, God was waiting for somebody to stand up. He was waiting for somebody to take charge, take leadership, spread the word and all that stuff.
elders said to me,
Let me see. I don't even know what to search for that. God waiting for... I don't even know what to search. This might be a botched search right here. But I remember him waiting for somebody and nobody did, which is why he ended up sending his son. And he sent multiple prophets as well, but
open and read the scroll or to look at it. But one
I
of the
was
elders...
just trying to see if I could draw a parallel to this. You know, he's waiting, nobody's opening. The angel's waiting, nobody's opening, nobody's able to open.
said to me,
Do not weep. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the scroll and to loose its 7 seals.
And I looked, and behold, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 living creatures, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as though it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Then he came and took the scroll out of the right.
Imagine that. It's kind of scary. That is kind of scary. But it's not supposed to be scary, right? That's supposed to represent Jesus.
Then he came and took the scroll out of the right hand of him who sat on the throne. Now when he had taken the scroll, the 4 living creatures and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each having a harp and golden bowls of incense, which are the prayers of the saints. And they sang a new song.
You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals.
So they didn't know that anybody would be worthy. They didn't know that Jesus would be worthy to open it. But they were relieved when it happened.
For you were slain, and have redeemed us to God by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth.
Then I looked, and I heard the voice of many.
And we shall reign on the earth. We are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, for you were slain. You have redeemed us to God by your blood, out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God, and we shall reign on the earth. So when is this going to happen? So these 24 elders and the 4 living creatures are going to reign on the earth at some point. Is this after the New Jerusalem descends upon earth? After the judgment?
Many angels around the throne, the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was 10,000 times 10,000 and thousands of thousands, saying with a loud voice,
Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive
Imagine
power
that.
and
Oh my
riches
gosh.
and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing.
and every creature which is in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea, and all that are in them, I heard saying,
Blessing and honor and glory and power be to him who sits on the throne and to the Lamb forever and ever.
Then the 4 living creatures said,
Amen.
and the 24 elders fell down and worshipped him who lives forever and ever.
Imagine seeing that. Holy. Imagine seeing that. That must be so hard to put into words. But he did. I think we're going to stop here. I'm going to look more into the 24 elders. 24 elders. Let me put up a commentary, actually, of Revelation 5. Every creature, John, was this it? Let's take it back a little bit. Let's go to 10. When the Lamb took the scroll, the response was immediate. Okay, before that, let's see. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, one of the elders, not an angel, rescued John from his grief, showing him the one who has prevailed to open the scroll. This one was the great figure of the Old Testament prophecy, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, Messiah of Israel and of the Gentiles. The Messianic title, Lion of the tribe of Judah, comes from Genesis, Isaiah, and Hosea. The title Root of David comes from Isaiah and is repeated in Revelation 22. Trapp says that a lion is a fitting image of our Messiah. And we see that in the Chronicles of Narnia. C.S. Lewis uses that same analogy with Aslan. So Trapp says the lion is a fitting image of our Messiah. 1, for the excellence of his strength. 2, for his heroical spirit. 3, for his principality. The lion is the king of beasts. And 4, for his vigilancy. The lion sleepeth with open eyes. And I looked, and behold, stood a lamb. Because of the elder's announcement, John expected to see a lion, but saw a lamb instead. John even used the specific word for a little lamb. It signifies a little or delicate lamb. The lamb is presented in a way both sympathetic and powerful. He is living, but still had the marks of previous sacrifice upon him. When men want symbols of power, they conjure up ferocious beasts and birds of prey, such as those that represent nations and sports teams. But the representative of the kingdom of heaven is a lamb, representing humility, gentleness, and sacrificial love. The lamb looks as though it had been slain. It's hard to describe what John saw, but this lamb had the marks of sacrifice on it. The coming judgment beginning in chapter 6 is dictated and administered by the Lamb, who already offered an escape from judgment by taking judgment upon himself. The judgment will come upon a world that hates the Lamb and all he stands for. The rejection his offer and rejects his offer of escape. So let me scroll down a little bit more. Even though the marks of his sacrifice were evident, the lamb was not presented as an object of pity. He bore the marks of omnipotence, 7 horns, and omniscience, 7 eyes. What a figure! A slain lamb who has the marks of omniscience and omnipotence. Throughout the scriptures, eyes suggest knowledge and wisdom, and horns suggest power. Right? We saw horns, multiple horns, 10 horns on the beast in the final beast in Daniel's vision, and that was the most powerful beast, right? This lamb has knowledge and wisdom and power fulfilled perfectly. 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. The Holy Spirit is not only the Spirit of God, but also the Spirit of Christ. The 7 eyes of the Lord are a picture of omniscience, drawn from the prophet Zechariah. Then he came and took the scroll. No created being was found worthy to take the scroll, but the Lamb can take it. His rank, character, and ability to take the scroll and open it has been permanently demonstrated by his work on the cross. When the Lamb took the scroll, the response was immediate. High-ranking angels and redeemed men were joined to worship the Lamb. Imagine seeing that. Like, you wouldn't be able to comprehend what was going on. Where's the part where that was in 10, right? Did they not cover it? Oh, you have made us kings and priests to our God. The song honors the length of redemption. We shall reign over the earth. The result of redemption. Okay, it doesn't go too deeply into it. I guess, what commentary, what are they going to say? You know, they can't say too much. We don't know who these people are. And we don't have any information on when they're going to reign, how they're going to reign. So it's all speculation, I guess, unless we find out further as we read. But that's going to be it for today. We just went through 4 and 5, and look how long that took. And we just touched the surface. We just touched the surface. That's what I'm saying. Revelation is going to take some time, but it's very interesting, and definitely a lot of questions still to be answered. Gotta definitely make separate videos on this. I want to look further into comparing Ezekiel and Revelation, and the living creatures in that, the living creatures in this. What do the faces represent? What do the eyes? They're saying eyes represent omniscience, and the horns represent omnipotence. But what do the colors represent? What do the number of wings represent? Who are the elders? Who are they going to reign over, along with the living creatures? So many questions we got to get answers to. So that's going to be it for today, though. I'm leaving you with a whole bunch of questions. Because tomorrow, when we jump into 6, that's when we start talking about the first seal. And we're going to get through 6 seals in chapter 6. And in chapter 8 is when we get into the 7th seal. So we'll jump into the seals tomorrow. Today we spent a lot of time on the creatures, and we still didn't scratch the surface of them. But that's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Crystal, thank you for taking part in the chat. You're probably super confused after reading this. Don't worry, so am I. We'll definitely do separate videos on this. I got to go back and highlight. There's certain sections so I know what we can dive into later. So like I said, this is going to be it for today. Tomorrow we'll jump into chapter 6 and look into the different seals that the Lamb, that Jesus has now opened, right? He has taken the scroll and he's opened it. And there's multiple seals on the scroll, right? So I'm assuming he's going to break each seal, and we're going to learn what each seal symbolizes. So we'll look into that tomorrow. So hope you have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you all tomorrow for chapter 6 of Revelation. Take care. Bye-bye.